Rock and Roller Coaster is the most intense roller coaster at Walt Disney World. Located at Disney's Hollywood Studios, this is an indoor launch coaster with 3 inversions. The ride is currently themed to a high-speed journey to an Aerosmith concert, but there are some rumors that may eventually go away. But in this video, I will review the current on-ride experience. In the late 1990s, the Universal Orlando Resort announced Islands of Adventure. This would be a brand new theme park opening in 1999 that would feature more thrill rides than any other park in Orlando. Disney countered by announcing Rock and Roller Coaster. This would open at the then Disney's MGM Studios in 1999. This would be the first coaster at Walt Disney World to take guests upside down, but it was not the first Disney coaster to do so. When Disneyland Paris built their version of Space Mountain in 1995, it was far different than the other installations. This one was a launch coaster with 3 inversions. The ride was supplied by Vekoma and was very well received by parkgoers. It's often credited with saving the resort. So it's no surprise that Disney once again hired Vekoma for Rock and Roller Coaster. This was one of the first coasters anywhere to feature linear synchronous motors, or LSMs. It used them for the launch. This accelerated the train to 57 miles per hour, or 92 kilometers per hour in less than 3 seconds. Then the ride featured a convoluted layout in the dark with 3 inversions. This layout would ultimately be cloned twice. One went to Walt Disney Studios, the second gate at Disneyland Paris, and the ride was originally also known as Rock and Roller Coaster, but it had a much different theme. It was also themed to Aerosmith, but rather than racing to a concert, you are invited to try a revolutionary music experience. This led to you boarding sound trackers. So instead of whizzing past road signs, you flew through a room filled with multicolored spotlights and strobe lights. I actually found this to be more disorienting than the visuals of the original. But this ride was closed in 2019 because the area was being transformed into a Marvel-themed area. The coaster reopened in 2022 as Avengers Assemble Flight Force. Many preferred the original attraction and called Flight Force a low-budget overlay, but I actually thought Flight Force was an upgrade. I have an entire review already published on the channel that goes more in depth, but in short, I thought the visuals really accentuated the sense of speed, and the story flowed better. The other time the layout was cloned was with Express at Wallaby Holland. The ride opened in 2000, and unlike the other versions, this one was placed entirely outdoors. I also have a separate review on this ride if you want to hear how the outdoor placement impacts the ride experience. But this won't be the last time you see the ride in this review. I'll be showing a lot of footage of Express to illustrate the elements because you can actually see them there. But back to Disney World's Rock and Roller Coaster. This ride is placed at the end of Sunset Boulevard, directly to the left of Tower of Terror. So this part of the park has become a hotspot for thrill seekers because you have arguably the 2 most intense rides side by side at the resort. I love the entry plaza for Rock and Roller Coaster. You enter underneath an archway with an inverted limo that is attached to guitar strings designed to be warped like coaster track. These wind all the way back to a giant Stratocaster placed on the side of the building. It's an amazing photo opportunity. This building houses the Q Line station, but it does not house the main layout. This is in a giant show building in a backstage area. It has absolutely no theming on the outside, but that's fine because it's totally hidden from guest view. And that's really impressive considering the building is over 100 feet or 30 meters tall. But it is set a long ways back from the midway, and it's cleverly painted white and blue to blend in with the sky. Let's talk about the queuing experience for this ride. The very end of the queue line looks fantastic. You enter G-Force Records. It's brilliantly lit. Then you have some record posters and music equipment lying about. But much of the wait takes place outdoors. You have some switchbacks at the start, then there's a long ramp running alongside the outside of the building, and there is nothing to see here. This is not a fun line to get stuck in. And unfortunately, Rock and Roller Coaster routinely is one of the longest lines at the resort. It typically hits the 60 to 90 minute mark most days. The ride has an extremely high throughput as it runs multiple trains, each seating 24 riders, and the crew loads and dispatches trains quickly. The long lines are entirely tied to demand. It is worth noting that roughly 2/3 to 3/4 of the ride's capacity is allocated specifically to Lightning Lane, meaning the standby line does not always move the fastest. There are a few ways to board with reduced waits at least. First, you can grab a Lightning Lane for this ride. This is a paid upcharge, but I think it's well worth it. You can book a 1-hour time slot once per day for this ride. When your time is called, you typically board in 10 to 15 minutes maximum. Second, head to Rock and Roller Coaster at the start of the day. Most people head left towards Galaxy's Edge or Toy Story Land. Not too many people head towards Sunset Boulevard during that first hour. And if you head here immediately, you can get in line before those with Lightning Lanes do. Third, ride Rock and Roller Coaster at the very end of the day. As long as you're in line before official closing time, you will be allowed to ride. At this time, the line moves way faster as well because there are no more Lightning Lanes. Fourth, there is a single rider line. Since Rock and Roller Coaster is 2 across seating, it does not move as quickly as rides with 3 or 4 across seating, but it is usually a shorter wait than standby. If you see this queue line extending onto the outdoor ramp, I have seen it take upwards of an hour, so I'll come back later if I see this. Once you reach the end of the queue line, you have a pre-show. You go into a recording studio with Aerosmith. Their band manager then interrupts a recording of Walk This Way, telling them they're going to be late for a show. But before they leave, Steven Tyler asks the manager to get some backstage passes for the guests. She then orders a really fast super stretch limo to get guests to the concert on time. You then have one last bit of queue line next to a parking garage. I like how the lighting makes it feel like nighttime. And you run right alongside the launch. This is a real wow moment seeing trains take off into the dark tunnel. At the end of the queue line, you are assigned a row. But if you ask nicely, you can request a specific row. I highly recommend the front row for this ride. This gives you an extra sense of speed and makes it far easier to see the on-ride visuals. Another benefit with the front row is that you get extra legroom because of the limo's large lead car. Like most Disney attractions, bags need to ride with you, so it can get pretty cramped in most rows if you have a backpack and long legs. Riders are restrained by an over-the-shoulder harness. This can be an issue on some older looping coasters, especially those from Vekoma, but fortunately Rock and Roller Coaster is a smooth ride. You will not get any headbanging here. The trains are equipped with onboard audio. This is a major part of the experience. It is loud and clear. Which train you board will impact your auditory experience. Different trains play different songs. You can tell by the license plate. One Quick Limo plays 9 Lives. You Go Babe plays Love in an Elevator and Walk This Way. Bye-Bye plays Young Lust, Fine, and Love in an Elevator. Hate Traffic plays Back in the Saddle and Dude Looks Like a Lady. Too Fast for You plays Sweet Emotion. Once dispatched, you round a corner and pause on the launch track. A radio DJ can be heard warning guests about heavy traffic up ahead, and this is accompanied by some electronic billboards sharing the same message. You sit here for maybe 15 to 20 seconds. Compare that to the Paris version where you launch almost immediately. Then Steven Tyler gives you a countdown, you blast off. The LSM launch has a decent kick to it, and the sense of speed is excellent because you accelerate down a dark and tight corridor. The end of the launch passes some illuminated road barriers as well. This leads directly into the Sea Serpent roll, which is a giant double inversion. It hits riders with strong positive Gs, enough to cause many to gray out, and it's fairly disorienting being in the dark. The pull-out passes by some spotlights. Then you have a giant turnaround. It's a mild element in terms of forces, but I like how the exit passes through a big Hollywood sign and then past some additional signs. You then twist upwards, getting a pinch of laterals. Then you cruise through a mid-course brake run. You can definitely tell it's a brake run, but you won't really slow down here. Then you pass under a road sign for the Civic Center. You then dive downwards, rebuilding your speed. You pass by some 2D buildings and signs. Then there's a quick turnaround that is immediately followed by the third and final inversion, a corkscrew. It's pretty disorienting in the dark, and I like how it takes place around some illuminated buildings. Then comes another turnaround, this time underneath some 2D trees. You then have another mid-course brake run. You don't slow down yet again, and you pass a litany of road signs. You then have a wide turn past all sorts of signage, most notably a giant donut you pierce right on through. You then have a little bunny hump underneath some road signs, and you charge into the final brake run. You see signs for concert parking up ahead, and the music intensifies as you get closer to the unload platform, aka where the concert is supposed to be. You then disembark onto a red carpet because you're a VIP after all, but instead of going to a concert, you go right into a gift shop in typical Disney fashion. This ends the 3,268 foot or 996 meter long coaster. What are my thoughts on the theme? I want to begin by saying it's not the easiest to theme a high thrill coaster like this, simply because you're traveling at high speeds. That's especially true when you have a twisted layout like this. But I think Disney did a solid job here. The signs, while mostly 2D cutouts and only visible for a second or two, do enhance the sense of speed. And after some recent refurbishments, they are more reliably and consistently being lit. I also love hearing the Aerosmith music while navigating the layout. There have been persistent rumors this ride will one day get rethemed, and it's not hard to see why. Aerosmith is a rare property that Disney does not own, meaning they have to pay licensing fees for it. Now, what are my thoughts about the ride one day being rethemed? I am open to it. I like the ride as is, but I wouldn't be opposed to it getting linked to a Disney property as long as the ride similarly integrates sound and audio. If you remember at the start, I actually like Flight Force more than Rock 'n' Roller Coaster. It is also worth noting the Paris one has a superior sense of speed, even when it ran as Rock 'n' Roller Coaster, and that's because it runs faster. I clocked the layout roughly 4 to 5 seconds faster on average in POVs. So, what would I rate Florida's Rock 'n' Roller Coaster? I would give this coaster a 7 out of 10. It's a good ride. The coaster is a coherent story. Then there's a delightful mix of visuals and music throughout. While there are some turns that feel like filler, I do enjoy the initial launch, and all three inversions are quite dizzying in the dark. And this offers a bona fide thrill experience that differentiates itself from the other coasters of the resort. So those are my thoughts on Rock 'n' Roller Coaster at Disney's Hollywood Studios. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Do you hope it gets rethemed? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.